Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and battery health is something I get asked about every single day. In fact, it seems more and more people are asking me about it, and about 2 to 3 people will message me every single day, either direct message or through email, and even more will comment about it, asking about battery health, whether or not they should worry about it, how to maintain it, and more. Now, I have videos in the past where I've talked about this, but things have changed a little bit with iOS since I last made those videos. Battery technology has changed a little bit, so I wanted to talk about that. I thought we'd cover what battery health is, what my phones that have been used full-time currently have. So I have an iPhone 6s Plus, an 11 Pro Max, a 12 Pro Max, and my 13 Pro Max that I've used full-time, charged them all the exact same way, and wanted to share what that's like, and also how you can maintain it and how to check it on devices that may not have it, so such as the iPad Air. Now, the first thing is what battery health actually is. Battery health is measuring the capability of the battery based on when it's new versus what it is after you've used it for a while. So on the 13 Pro Max, we have a 4,352 milliamp hour battery, and say you've used it for a couple of years, maybe we get down to 3,500 milliamp hours left. Another example would be maybe you have a car that you just got. It holds 10 gallons of fuel or petrol or gasoline, depending on where you live. And after using it for 2 years, it now only holds 8 gallons. And so that's the same sort of thing of what happens to batteries. Batteries degrade over time, and based on how much they've degraded, Apple gives you a percentage of what's left. And so currently on my 13 Pro Max, you'll see I'm at 100%. You can see that in your battery settings, which you're probably already familiar with, but battery and battery health, you'll see your battery percentage there. And over time, this is going to go down. There's nothing you can do currently with the current capabilities of batteries and the way they're actually produced to actually make them extended 100% for the life of the phone or anything else. Batteries degrade over time, and until someone invents a better one, there's really nothing you can do, unfortunately. Whether that be an iPhone, an Android phone, a car such as a Tesla, or anything else, they just degrade based off the way they work. Actually, by charging them, they expand and contract, and heat affects them as well. They can develop microfractures that just degrade them over time, and then they will eventually need to be replaced. So maintaining them is something the phone is going to help you do, but there's a few things you can do as well. Now, first, I wanted to answer a few questions that many of you had. So the first thing is a little bit of a myth based off of these batteries. Lithium-ion batteries do not have a memory, or not a memory similar to what we had with older NiCad rechargeable batteries, or nickel cadmium. And the reason for that is it's just the way they work. And what that means is you don't need to charge it when it's brand new or drain it to 0%. So maybe you have a brand new phone. I get asked all the time, do I need to charge my phone to 100% before I use it? Or do I need to drain it to 0 and let it turn off before I can use it? And you absolutely do not need to do that. Apple calibrates them at the factory, tells them the capability of the phone, such as the 4,352 milliamp hours, and it knows based off the battery management system what it's capable of. Then it will change over time. Now, there is an exception. If maybe you replace the battery with a non-Apple battery, you want to calibrate that battery to your device. The only way to calibrate that, or for the computer to learn it, is drain it down and charge it all the way up. Otherwise, if it's an Apple battery or you just got it from Apple, you don't need to do any of that. Another question someone had is, does low power mode affect battery health? And it doesn't affect battery health, but it affects battery or your phone performance. So if you turn on low power mode, you're going to gain some battery life because it's turning off features, meaning your battery will last longer. It's really designed to maybe get you to a charger when you don't have one nearby. So maybe you're down to 20%, you won't be home for a while, or you won't be near a charger, you need to extend the battery, then you can turn it on. But by turning that on, you're reducing the performance of the processor. It's going to turn it down a little bit. It's also going to turn off features such as fetching mail, and all sorts of other things. It will also make sure auto brightness is turned on and much more. So just keep that in mind, that if you are using low power mode, you're going to lose features. I typically recommend against it unless you can't get near a charger soon. Also, another question I get a lot is, do iOS betas degrade your battery faster? And a lot of people say, well, I just installed a beta or an update and my battery health went down. That's only because it's measuring your battery health. So what it's doing is it installed an update and it says, let me see what it's at now. So you may see it vary, and it could go back up a little bit later as it learns the battery and recalibrates. But typically over time, it will go down, but the updates themselves do not degrade the battery. However, they could use more battery, meaning that the battery life of your phone might go down a little bit since you're using beta software that's not available to the public, and it could have some bugs in it and things. So it doesn't affect the health other than you may charge your phone more often, which in turn degrades the health. However, using just beta software or software updates in general does not do that. As far as how I charge and what I've done to maintain my battery health, well, first let me show you my battery health. So settings, battery health on my 13 Pro Max. I've used this every single day just about since it was new, with the exception of reviewing a couple other phones. It's at 100%. On my iPhone 6s Plus, this is an older phone, which has been maintained similarly. But if we go to battery and battery health, I use this for an entire year full time. I'm at 85%. So that's pretty good given its age. Then if we look at the 11 Pro Max, the 11 Pro Max, again, used for an entire year, is at 93%. And this is actually recalibrating it. So this could vary. It could go up or down a little bit. And then on the 12 Pro Max, again, that I used for a whole year as my main phone, go to battery, battery health, I'm at 94%. So after a year or so, typically you can expect about 10% to go down, but Apple says after 2 years, you can expect around 80% capacity. That's completely normal. Depending on your usage, if you're a very heavy user and you use the battery a ton, charge it a lot and discharge it a couple times a day, it's going to go down more quickly. It's just the way the battery is. But as far as charging and how I charge, well, this is a bit controversial and depending on who you ask. Scientists that study batteries will say optimally you want to keep your battery between about 20 and 80% all of the time. Other scientists will say leave it at 100%. It just depends who you ask. So since the first iPhone, I've charged them all the exact same way. I've owned every iPhone and I've charged them the same. The first iPhones, I used a 12-watt Apple charger from the iPad with it. It's not really a fast charger, but it was the fastest way to charge at the time. I would plug it in at night, go to bed, wake up in the morning, take it off of the charger. When I was in my car, I'd plug it into Apple CarPlay when that was available, or just my stereo, use it then, it would be charging. Then I'd get to work or wherever I was going, unplug it, and I would use it then. Then in my car, I'd put it back on. When I got home, I'd put it on the charger before I go to bed. So nowadays, with a MagSafe charger, I put it on a charger on my nightstand at night, charge the battery, and go to bed. When I wake up, it's fully charged. Apple is now managing this for you and holding it at 80% with optimized battery charging. And it says to reduce battery aging, iPhone learns from your daily charging routine so it can wait to finish charging past 80% until you need to use it. Meaning maybe you have an alarm set to wake up at 7 a.m. You set that alarm and by the time it's 7 a.m. it will be at 100%. However, before then it will hold it at 80% until it gets close enough to the time it needs to start charging again to reach 100% by the time it's time to use it. This helps extend battery life over time. So Apple is using the 80% measure to actually help you extend it over time. Now, some people say, will you overheat the battery? Will you maybe overcharge the battery? And you cannot overcharge the battery. It's impossible to overcharge the battery as there's circuitry in the battery to prevent that from happening on iPhones. So even if you give it a different battery charger, such as this Nano 2 45-watt from Anker, you're charging it, you plug this in, the phone will only allow you to deliver the amount of power that it needs. So maybe it's capable of 20-watt fast charging. It will only allow 20 watts to pass, even though the charger is capable of more. The phone manages that for you and prevents the battery from either getting too hot or charging too much. So many people say, well, fast charging makes the phone too hot. And Apple is actually very aggressive at managing heat in the phone. There's sensors in the phone to manage that temperature. And as you're fast charging, whether that be with MagSafe or directly with a lightning cable, the phone actually says it's too warm and it will reduce the amount of voltage or wattage going into the phone to make sure that it doesn't get too hot. It does that on its own, and Apple actually has programmed it to do that. So it will manage the voltage and wattage going into the phone or wattage going into the phone to make sure that it's not 15-watt fast charging if it's getting too hot. It will pull it down to maybe 10 watts or 8 watts. You can see this in previous videos I've made where over time it will actually reduce the power, then it will go back up. So that's something that they've been very good with. Also, that happens in their MagSafe charger as well. So they're just measuring this depending on what charger you're using, measuring it to make sure it's optimal. Now, if you have a case on your phone, it may get too hot and even charge slower. So maybe sometimes if you're in a very warm environment, Apple actually recommends removing the case so that doesn't happen. So it doesn't get too hot and it will charge at its fastest speed and they can manage heat a little bit better. Now, if you're someone that's trying to maintain the battery between 20 and 80% all of the time and being careful when to plug it in or unplug it, you really won't see much of a gain in my tests, maybe 3% over the period of a year. And so that's something that I typically don't recommend to people. Now, if you're wanting to see battery health on an iPad, the only way to do that is with a utility on your Mac or your Windows computer. I'm using Coconut Battery on a Mac, and you can see here it shows the design capacity. It's at 100%, and then more importantly, I think it's showing the cycle count. A battery cycle is a full charge and discharge, or any combination in between, meaning 100% to 0 and back up to 100 is a cycle. Or maybe you're at 50%, you charge to 100%, then the next day you're down to 50 again and charge to 100. That 50% discharge twice equals 100%. That's a full cycle. So any combination of that, 20% all the way up to 100, and then the next day 80 to 100, that would give you a full cycle. So that cycle count is kind of a finite number as to when it degrades, usually around 1,000, but it varies depending on device. Now, one tip is maybe you need to replace the battery, or maybe you think you do. You can go to Apple's support app now that they've updated with some very helpful features. So you'll see there's repairs and physical damage. Then you can tap on battery service, and it will actually check battery performance for you. It says run a quick check to see the health of your battery. You'll also get performance tips based on your settings and more help if the battery needs service. If we tap on check now, it will check the battery, and you'll see it says maximum capacity 85%. Performance is normal. Maximum capacity is 80% or higher, and peak performance is normal. See a few tips on how to maximize your battery performance. So this is something that's more recent that they've updated, and it will tell you if you need to replace it. If you do, it will give you the cost for that based on whether or not you have Apple Care. So these are all very helpful things Apple has done, from optimized battery charging and more. And so I've made this video really to hopefully, if you're still watching at this point, to let you know that you really shouldn't have to worry about battery health. In fact, I hope someday they change it, and it's just something you need to overlook. All batteries degrade, and there's much more important things in the world going on. And if you need to replace your battery, you can pay the money to do that or replace it yourself if you have the capability. And so with all of that, I really just wouldn't worry about battery health at all. And of course, most people swap their phones every 2 to 3 years. And by that time, you'll probably need a new battery anyway. You get a new phone. And if you need to hand on the phone to maybe someone else, you can replace the battery at that point. So typically I tell people, don't worry about it. Just enjoy your phone, charge it at night, and use it regularly, and enjoy it and use it. So don't worry about those things. You can definitely change the way you charge and try to manage it all you want, but that really isn't worth your time. It's definitely not worth my time to do that as far as trying to manage it constantly. I just put it on the charger at night. I've done that since the beginning, and I do that with all my devices. So I've had pretty good success. My wife has on all her phones and everything else that she's had over the years, and her battery health is fine as well. She doesn't ever look at it. So hopefully that was helpful. And if you have any additional insight, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.